everybody. Welcome to another broadcast of UnBolted. I'm MJ Bolt, your host, and with us tonight at 5 o'clock p.m. on a Thursday, July 17th, we have the awesome Enrique Rico, who is the chair of the Spokane County Young Republicans. Enrique, thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So good to see you again, MJ.
Yeah, you too. I've known Enrique for a few years in this work, and Enrique is such an awesome person and awesome stuff what he's doing. I'm just really thrilled to have you on here and to share about like what you're doing, what Young Republicans are about, and all that. So again, thank you for being here and and for joining us. So Enrique, tell people a little bit about you and your background and kind of, what led you to get involved. I mean, you're 20. Tell me what your age is again.
25.
You're 25 and you've been involved for a few years that I know of. And that's, not every 25-year-old has, this much political involvement as you've had. So tell us about, like, how did you get here?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting story. I grew up in Spokane. Grew up in poverty. My parents were pretty poor. So, all my life I kind of knew that you had to work hard to get, success and, the importance of hard work and saving up. So when I was 16, I got my first job flipping burgers and, worked at the Spokane Convention Center for a little bit. I did running start as a high school student. So I was, a high school student while, going to the community college and getting, college credits. So I didn't really grow up in a household where my parents really talked about politics at all. It was really foreign to me. Like I would see signs pop up every once in a while, but it wasn't until I went to the community college and started to go to, the poli-sci 101 or, 102 or whatever, and really started to be exposed to it. And I liked it. And I wasn't really, Republican or Democrat at the time. I was just, a curious student, right? And I really felt like I saw like the liberal push. And, sometimes I would just ask questions, right? That seemed to like conflict with the narrative. You know what I mean?
In school? Are you talking about like when you're in college?
Yeah. When I was in school, and I would just ask questions, you know what I mean? Ask a lot of questions because I was curious, right? But it seemed like, I don't know if they think you're conservative, like even the college professors seem to kind of like single you out. And it was really like uncomfortable, right?
Wow.
And, time kept going and I started to pay more attention, and it wasn't until about 2018 around that time where I really started to like President Trump and his policies because I wasn't really too familiar before that. But I saw he was doing great work with like healthcare and, reducing drug prices for people who need it. And I also saw the news, lying about, what Trump's doing when I just watched, the interview like an hour before. So I thought it was really interesting. And I saw that the media was really one-sided. And I started to, gain a little more distrust in the mainstream media and, just follow Trump a little bit more. So as time, went on, we lost the 2020 election. You saw Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and, the effects of their disastrous policies and, what a mess the border was and, yada, yada. So, during the 2024 election, I really wanted to get involved. And make a difference if I could. So I went to the precinct caucus, and from there I went to the county caucus, and then from the county caucus I went to the state caucus, which is a really cool experience. And I don't think a lot of people realize how important those are. And if you're there and you're a PCO or you're a delegate to the conventions, you can vote on the Republican platform for the state and be voted to go to the RNC, which is really cool, right? So that whole experience really sparked an excitement within me, and I just haven't looked back since.
Yeah. So that was in 20. Let's see. That was last year? That was 2024.
That was just last year. Yeah.
It's been a crazy year. It's been a crazy 15 months or So the county convention was in March of 2024, and then the state convention was in, gosh, was that
into
May.
April.
Yeah, or April. That's right. April. Jeez Louise, what a whirlwind. I should know this. I was chair of the party, of course, but like it was so much and so intense so fast. So I'm curious, Enrique, like so you said you really didn't align with conservative or liberal policies really before you got into college. And I mean, you didn't have an alignment really before then, is that right?
That is correct. Again, my parents never really discussed it. Like when you're not exposed to it, you'd hear things sometimes like, the government shutdown of like what was it, 2014 or something, right? You hear those things, but like we never really followed. We never really cared, and it wasn't until those experiences at college and really just learning to critically think and
Mhm.
think for yourself is what really did it. I don't really think any rational minded person can you know be like an intense Marxist liberal. um you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think it's really awesome to think for yourself and like you said, think critically. And unfortunately, we're not training up people to do that too often, or when they step out, kind of like what it sounds like your experience was. If you question maybe that agenda or that narrative, it sounds like you got some bad, feedback or
Yeah, and I feel
backlash.
like in a way they teach you how to think and like herd mentality. You know what I mean? They teach you how to be, a good, compliant citizen. Take your vaccines. You know what I mean? Put your mask on. You know what I mean? All these different things, and they really push that, and I feel like they trap you. And college is supposed to be a place where you can exchange ideas and just debate. But now if some people don't hear something they don't like, oh, you need safe areas, you got to go to a safe area. And you know what I mean? There was a lady who came in and spoke at the Lincoln Day dinner just this year. Her name was Olivia. Really sweet lady, really nice lady, right? Probably one of the sweetest people I've met. And she just speaks about protecting women and women's rights in sports. And she goes to Seattle University, and there's increased safe zones. You know what I mean? There's increased access to counseling. They're saying all that through emails because, you know what I mean? People can't exchange ideas anymore. College is an exchange of ideas. It's more like an indoctrination almost. But, a lot of people need it depending on what they want to do for their career. And I don't know. I just think it's really interesting.
Yeah. So did you go to college here in Spokane?
Yeah, I just went to the community college, SFCC, but I'm thinking of going back. I need to get my bachelor's to qualify for this program I want to get into. But um, yeah, I just went to community college and got my general associates, transferable degree.
So even there, you saw this, agenda narrative that was definitely left leaning. And, I think some people don't recognize, especially older people like me that have been out of school for a very long time, how prevalent it is in our institutions now. And for some reason, I would think that a community college would be less of that than maybe some of these bigger universities or colleges, but that definitely was not your experience.
Well, I'm sure it is a little more toned down at the community colleges. I haven't went to a university yet, so I'm not, entirely sure. But no, it was definitely left leaning. It was very obvious. Nobody tries to hide it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just fascinating to me. I think it's really cool, and I think it's unique also, Enrique, that you came from basically nonpartisan. You came with a kind of a fresh, clean slate with no preconceived notions. A lot of people grow up with their parents leaning one way or the other, and develop their opinions from that. But you really just had a fresh slate, and you could just think about things critically. And then you also mentioned the media, how you felt like you weren't getting the straight truth or the fair shake from the media. And we haven't talked about COVID, like 2020, of course, happened right in there. Talk a little bit more about that, because I think that's still something that a lot of people wrestle with. They assume that they're going to get the truth from the mainstream media.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
what, yeah.
crazy. Yeah. COVID was already 5 years ago, huh? That's crazy to think about. It happened. It was like just yesterday,
Yeah.
isn't it?
We
But
remember it very freshly, right?
right. No, I remember I think it was like December of 2019 I started to see articles of like some sort of, virus coming out of, China. And there was some concern there. And I was just like, huh, interesting. And it wasn't really until like, a few months later until the spring where the lockdowns and the mandates started to pop up. And of course, everyone's kind of like, concerned when something like that first comes up. You want to know,
Oh, yeah.
what's going on. You want to be safe. You want to keep your family safe. But I think it didn't really take too long for people to realize that the
Something
news,
about-
yeah, something was off. Something was off. I felt like the vaccine popped up way too quickly. Like how'd they get the vaccine made that fast? That's a little surprising. Like the mask and the 6 foot distance, that stuff had no scientific basis. You know what I mean? I think it's really interesting. There's an interview with Fauci where he said something like there was no, scientific study conducted with like trials of like the 6 feet to 10 feet to, whatever feet he said. So it's like interesting. They're just making stuff up. They're just making stuff up the entire time. And I feel like they did it for fear and for control. Obviously, it was an election year. It was a big election year. And, who knows what happened with the mail-in voting, that year. I don't know. But I do know that there was a lot of, distrust. And I felt like the survival rate, if someone did get COVID, was extremely high. Like no one was at risk of like dying really, unless you were, exposed to some pre-existing condition or you were really old. But you saw people like Governor Cuomo, who stuck people who were COVID positive into, the elderly homes, and it really spread, to them and did a lot of damage. So I don't know, just the entire time it felt weird. It felt like a game. It's hard to know what's true nowadays and what's not, because there's like so much, everyone's saying so much, you're hearing things from all over the place. But it's hard to trust. It's hard to trust the news now. They've lost all credibility, and I think you can see that with like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, because now they're saying, oh yeah, Joe Biden's, was cognitively struggling for a while, but we just weren't told. And it was really obvious. It's really obvious. There's no way that, you can be in a room with him and not know,
Yeah. So were you still in college when 2020, when COVID hit and the lockdowns hit?
No. So I did the community college, like as a Running Start student in high school. And then, during the COVID time, I was in trade school. I was doing road work.
Okay.
So I was doing construction at that time.
Okay.
So I wasn't like a student. I was just working.
Yeah. Yeah. But you started to kind of definitely question the narrative and the mainstream media. And yeah, it was, as you said, the success rate or the survival rate, that was the thing that just never, it's like this is 97.5% survival rate. Like, why are we doing this? When only 3% of the population is really being affected by this. And I have my dad's almost 85 now, so he probably would have been 80, and he had gotten really sick, with something like a couple months prior, and had been sick, like, with a bad flu for like 3 weeks, but he was over it and moving on. And, it's like, okay, like people are getting over this. So
Right.
yeah. It was, so I wondered, do you think how that all played out, like impacted you in your, maybe political endeavors?
That's a good question. I don't know. I feel like in politics, why would you ever trust a politician, right? It doesn't matter if like you support them and you feel like, you guys are on the same team or not. Like you should really hold everyone to the same standards and, think critically, think for yourself. Why would you ever trust, a politician when they're, grabbing for more power or more money? Like, how much money did the pharmaceutical industries make from these vaccines? And, it went from you take one shot, you'll be good, to, oh, we're on your 5th, 6th booster now, or, how many boosters do you have? It's like patches on a vest or something. It's like, how much money did they make from that? Like, what was, the real purpose? Like, was it to save lives? Was it to make money? It's hard. I just think people should be, a little skeptical of, everyone in positions of authority, because power corrupts.
Right.
You can have someone who goes in for the right reasons, but by the time they leave, they've been corrupted by the system. I think people have to take that into account.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So how did so you went to the precinct caucuses, which happens every 4 years in our state. And then we have, which leads to the state convention, which leads to the national convention, which leads to the party nominating, their person for president, right? Like, and there's other things that happen along the way, but it starts at the grassroots level in your neighborhoods, in the precincts. And so how did you get involved with that? Like, how did you hear about that? I mean, you're 23 at the time. No, well, it was last year. So you're 20, 24 at the time.
Yeah. So I just heard from word of mouth, which is interesting because you don't see a lot of advertising for stuff like that online. Like, a lot of people wouldn't know. So maybe that's something we can strive for in the future, trying to be, more inclusive and make sure the word's getting out there. But yeah, I just heard from, a friend of a friend. So, I showed up because I was interested, at that time, I was, I'd been injured in September prior to that. So I was sitting on the couch a lot. I had a bad leg injury. So when that precinct caucus came up in January, it was like, sweet, something to do, get off the couch, go crutch over there and see what's going on. So
yeah. Was it other young people, Enrique, that, shared this information, or was it just, some other acquaintances that you had? I'm curious if it came from another young Republican or.
it was just acquaintances, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I kind of do remember meeting you around then. I think the first time I sat down with you, I'm trying to remember what the event was now, but we all went to dinner up in around Kendall Yards. I think was the first time I sat down with you. Yeah, and I don't remember if that was after the county convention or what that was.
It was after the state convention. Yeah, I remember that.
The state. Okay, that was the state convention. Yeah, that was very interesting. So yeah, so that's what's kind of cool about this. And like I said, it only happens every 4 years, which is too bad because it really is a cool process where you really honor those grassroots voices and you talk about your platform, the Republican platform. You decide for the county what the county platform is going to be, basically these principles and values that we believe all Republicans should adhere to, but especially the ones that are elected. And then you move on. If you go to the state convention, that's where you vote on the state platform, and then also the endorsement of candidates as well. And so and that happened to be in Spokane, so it was a pretty cool experience, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it was a great experience. And I forget what time this happened, but I know, after the precinct caucus and the county caucus, I really started to get involved with, MJ and people like, Mark Anthony, who was my district leader at the time. And so I joined what was the vetting committee for the candidates who are running for the 5th congressional district. Which Michael Baumgartner won that, and he's been doing an amazing job, I believe. So shout out to Mike.
Yep.
But it was cool being able to meet, all these candidates coming in and really ask, tough questions. And I think a lot of candidates appreciated not taking it soft on them, right? Like asking real questions and being real. I think in politics, a lot of the time people feel like they can't be real. It's like, just be you, be authentic, be real,
Yeah. So, and did you become a precinct PCO right away before that?
I believe I did. Maybe just a few weeks after, because I was in a vacant precinct.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was able to sneak in.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so because of that, then you got connected, and Mark Anthony is an amazing person, an amazing networker, and gets people involved. Like every county needs a Mark Anthony, because he recruits people really well and got you involved. And then you got to be on our vetting committees, and these vetting committees is kind of a new thing that we started back in 2023 with the new board leadership. And before that, kind of a small group of people would, handpick the endorsed candidate, and the PCOs didn't really have a voice. And the whole party idea, the county party's idea, whether you're Democrat or Republican, is that the membership is made up by the PCOs. And I was talking to somebody this morning about that's the structure throughout not just our state, but the nation, right? The PCOs are the members of the party. And they are elected positions, even though most people don't see them on the ballot, because of the ways our laws are. And a lot of them go unopposed. That's why you don't see them on the ballot. Or they go vacant. And I think we have about 60% of our PCOs are have people in them, or our precincts. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, but then all of a sudden, here you are, 24 on the vetting committee for a congressional seat, asking potential Congress people about, what they feel about this or that. So that's pretty cool. I didn't realize you were on that vetting team.
Yeah. It was a really cool experience. And, I got to make connections with people. And I think, that's what this is about, really, is about people and connections and doing the best you can for your friends and family, right?
Right. And that in Spokane County, then what happens from those vetting teams is they give recommendations back to the PCOs on who they believe the best candidates are. They rate them, and then but it's up to the PCOs. The PCOs actually vote then, whoever shows up. If you don't show up, you can't vote. But they're the ones then that vote on the endorsement. And so that's how the endorsement process works. So that's pretty cool. So, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to add that I really appreciate that the Republican Party is very inviting. It invites people in. We want people in to be, PCOs. And I feel like it's really set up to be bottom up, from the people in the PCOs, upward, which I think is really special and it's really unique. And I'd just like to add that, for Spokane specifically, I think we have way more PCOs than the Democrats have. So we have, a lot more people in there, and a lot more people that are giving to the organization, which is sweet.
Yeah. And Enrique, what part of Spokane? You live in the city of Spokane, right?
Yeah. Well, I moved recently. I moved to an apartment because I had to downsize a little bit.
Okay.
So I live right across from SFCC.
Okay.
But I think someone told me that it's the county, but I feel like it's still the city.
Yeah, it's probably right in there. So you'll have to research that. But you were in a downtown, more downtown, in the city of Spokane proper precinct, correct?
Yeah.
Which is, if people watching don't know, Spokane has been going, blue for quite a while, downtown Spokane. So we live in the county of Spokane. We're like 60-40 still overall. Ish, right? Like 60% usually goes Republican, 40%. And in the surrounding areas outside of Spokane proper, almost all of our positions, end up being Republican. People vote Republican predominantly. So like a 60-40, but in Spokane proper, that's not the case. It's,
right. Yeah.
It's blue. And so there's, I think you have different challenges in your precinct than I do out here in Spokane Valley, right? Which is predominantly red or Republican. So maybe talk a little bit about that too, because I think that's so important that we get more involvement in these blue areas. Yeah.
Well, I think, you're totally right. Like Spokane, which is, predominantly the 3rd legislative district, is pretty blue. And I don't think a lot of people realize that, just the way people vote. I truly feel like there is a lot more conservatives that just don't vote. And we need to encourage our friends to get their ballots turned in. But yeah, it is rough in Spokane, and it's a little rough campaigning. Just the contrast of door knocking and helping campaigns in Spokane versus Spokane Valley is like the people in Spokane Valley are a lot more, willing to conversate and, be, a little more welcome to people, where in the 3rd, I feel like a lot more people are kind of caged in maybe a little bit. It's harder to campaign in the city of Spokane. I feel like if you're a Republican, And we have a lot of work to do. I don't think it's out of our reach, but I do think that we as the Republican Party need to get our eye on the ball and start getting some big wins in Spokane. For example, city council, if we can't flip a couple seats and we continue to have this, same city council that we have, like, these guys are jokes. They've done absolutely nothing, for the city of Spokane. If you look around downtown, it's a disaster. It's heartbreaking. There's so many people out here, starving and losing their lives and high on drugs. And I feel like everyone just looks away. You don't have that as much in the Valley, right? So, like,
Right.
These are the big differences where, like, the Valley's more conservative, where Spokane's more liberal, and you have more of these issues, right? Crime's more of an issue in Spokane versus Spokane Valley. It's like, those are things that matter to people, and I think it should be a wake-up call maybe, but yeah.
So, and did you grow up mostly in Spokane, Enrique?
Yeah.
In the city. So you've seen the last 25 years or 20 years that you were maybe paying more attention, how it's transformed, right?
Oh yeah. It's very obvious. Like, I remember when I was a little younger, a young teenager, my dad worked at a gas station downtown, and sometimes on the weekends or during the summer I would go, to work with him overnight. And there was a lot less homeless people, and the people that were there you knew by name. Now it's like a complete different story. Are you still there, MJ?
I'm back.
Okay.
keep going. I don't know what happened, but
okay. I didn't know if I left on accident, but yeah, like I was saying, so my dad worked at this gas station downtown, and the homeless people, know them by name, right? He built relationships with people, and it wasn't as bad. The disaster right now is a crisis. There's so many people. It's multiplied by several. The overdoses downtown and the deaths have increased and continue to increase. It's huge. People don't want to come downtown to shop anymore. People don't want to take their young kids to Riverfront Park. These have big effects on you as a city, and it's sad when you have something like Hoop Fest downtown where it brings in so many people, and then you kind of see the city workers and the police kind of push the homeless people away, just for the weekend, just for the event, so they can get some some quick money and have the tourists not see as much as that. But it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal in Spokane. I think people are frustrated with that.
yeah. And I hear from people that used to go downtown a lot, people out in the Valley, and then even people that live in the city, that just maybe not right downtown, but they don't want to go downtown anymore. And, through the Republican Party, we had a bunch of, we had these business roundtables every month there for a while. And so we were talking, directly to the business owners and the people that had these businesses and the stuff they go through just to have a business. I mean, it's just not profitable. It's not feasible. It's not, you can't keep doing it. And so it's really sad. Now, you work downtown right now, right? Or where do you work?
I work right downtown, right on.
So you get to see it. You see it every day.
Every day.
Yeah. Wow.
I have right outside my window I have a view of an old building called the Red Path. I think it might be like low income housing, and it's just a hot spot for drug activity. I literally see drug transactions outside the window. You know what I mean? There's a corner store right there. I go into the corner store. It's the most outrageous and weird experiences. You know what I mean? It's bad, and I don't want to demonize anyone who's out there struggling, because personally, I've experienced with that. My mom, for a large portion of my life, she struggled with drug abuse, and she was absent. But by the grace of Jesus Christ, she found salvation, and she's doing awesome now. So I don't demonize these people out here going through stuff. I think there's a lot of debate. Why should people be doing drugs right out in the open? Yeah. Like, why does it seem like the police don't really care about enforcing laws anymore? And really, if it seems like someone's out here and they can't really take care of themselves and they're not healthy, you can tell they're not healthy, and it doesn't really seem like they can keep themselves safe, then I think the city should step in, make sure they detox, get the drugs out, and then, push them towards a direction where they can, get rehabilitated and, transition and get their lives back. Because if you keep just trying to throw money at the issue, they're throwing money at the issue, raising taxes, throwing money at the issue, and nothing happens. Like, it's insane, right? That's the definition of insanity. We got to switch it up a little bit. But, our city council doesn't seem to believe that.
Right. Well, and we got, a Democrat majority, a 5-2 majority, plus a, Democrat mayor, Lisa Brown. And so, they've passed like the compassion resolution. And, to me, it is not compassionate to enable people to stay in this hurtful environment. That is the opposite of compassion.
Right.
And, we have like places like Union Gospel Mission, UGM, that they've proven that they can help people and they can turn people's lives around. And, they have requirements, right?
Yeah.
But it works, and it's not enabling. But, that's not who gets the support. That's not the policies that are prevailing right now. It's this enablement. And the same thing in Seattle. I mean, it's probably a little more visible in Seattle. I think we see more of it like on social media just because more people are videoing it or whatever. But it's like that just right down Spokane here. And it is not helpful. It's not compassionate, and it's hurting these people. Like you said, we have compassion for people that are struggling. And it's hurting businesses. They're not going to be, a lot of people don't go downtown, don't have businesses downtown anymore. It's just, it's not good. So, I mean, we want to get involved, and I would think that's kind of part of your why of getting involved, to help change your community and, change things. Is that part of your why, Enrique?
Well, that's the hope. I feel, yeah, that's the goal, right? I feel like everything you have to do in life, you have to have a purpose behind it, right? There's got to be a reason that, you're doing things and waking up, and, you have your goals, right? So yeah, my goal is to really just make Spokane a better place, and, make the state a better place if you can. And it takes time, it takes commitment. Sometimes I get discouraged, and, I question why I'm doing this, and if I'm, utilizing, my young years, like as well as I could. But I just, like you said, we have so much love and compassion for people that I think, like, you have to, right? I feel like I have a calling, and it's not really about me personally. I feel like I see some people that gravitate towards politics with big egos, maybe. I could really care. I could care if people know me or don't know me. Like, my goal for the Young Republicans is to bring, have an avenue for young people to come in and to know how to make a difference in their communities, right? To know, how to, lobby their state legislator, their city council, and, do these things to actually make differences instead of noise. Because we have so much noise right now. We have so much noise, and I think it's easy to get overwhelmed. I just want to make an impact, right?
Yeah. And do you feel like you're able to make an impact with your involvement in the Republican Party and through the Young Republicans?
I'm making more of an impact now than I would have been if I didn't. Yeah. Right. So, like, I don't know, for example, this year, a lot of, the Washington Young Republicans got more involved with Olympia during the legislative cycle. We had a lot of great members showing up to testify just about every day on bad bills, and there's no shortage of bad bills, right? And it was like, did it make a difference? Probably not. A lot of the bills they passed anyways, right? But you're putting pressure on them. You're letting them know that the young generation is waking up, and we're here now. And I think it actually got under the skin of a lot of Democrat legislators, because they started to twist our words more, I noticed. Yeah. And, you know what I mean? They started to talk about us, during their forums, and, it was like, sweet, well, game on, you know what I mean? So it's cool. And if I felt like I had the answers and I could wave a wand and, solve problems, I absolutely would. And I'm learning as I'm going, just like a lot of us. And you know what I mean? We have a lot of great, people that support us. But, along the way, it's more trial and error and, learning as you go.
Right. Yeah, and I'll say too, I think it's important as well, like when you have young Republicans or, younger people than me out there testifying, it also shows your generation and other people that are more your age, like this is what's going on. Here, we're sitting right in front of this bill, and this is what this bill is saying, and it's not good. And I think, people are going to be able to relate to you saying that, or people of your age more than they're going to be able to relate to me saying that. It just translates better. So just by, even if most of us don't feel like, we tried really hard this legislation session and the legislative session, and we keep trying every year, and it feels like, it's falling on deaf ears. But honestly, I do believe it is having an impact on the other people that are watching you, and showing, hey, look, they're out there fighting, and I believe in what they're fighting for. And gosh, I wasn't even aware that our state has these policies. I mean, that's true all across the board, right? So I think you are making way more of an impact, especially as you young Republicans being involved in different things like that. It'd be awesome if we could get people going and, to city councils and school board meetings, and I know that's always a struggle, just even as our county party, our whole county party, there's so much to do. And there's so many city councils, we've got, I can't even think of how many cities we have within the county, many school boards. So there's tons of meetings to go to, but if you can even just start going, to one and start showing up, it makes a difference. Talk to us a little bit more about the Young Republicans, Enrique, because I do think that there's power in numbers, right? And that's the power of the Republican Party. And I'm not saying the Republican Party is perfect at all. In fact, it's got its own problems and it's got its own corruption. And that's what we've been getting involved to change and to straighten out. And we need good people that will do that, like Enrique, that are, not doing this for their own ego, but doing this to do what's right and to promote truth. And so talk to us a little bit about how you got involved with the Young Republicans then, and what you've been doing with that group.
Yeah, well, it started in Spokane because there wasn't a group chartered when I first, got involved with the Spokane GOP, but it just took, a few young people in the age range 18 to 40. A few of us, sat down, got chartered, got it together, and then we just started growing from there. Right. It doesn't take, a lot to get chartered. And if you live in a county in Spokane that doesn't have a YR chapter, I encourage you to reach out to us at the, Washington Young Republican website. And it literally only takes, 5 people to get chartered. You have to have a set of bylaws, which, we created some bylaws and, all that to make sure we're compliant with, the state standards. And then from that, we just started to, have socials, invite more people. We like to have, a lot of fun, but we also like to, make an impact. So, last year, a lot of us spent a lot of time campaigning for various candidates and, gained a lot of experience like that. And then you just continue to grow, right? You continue to have socials. You continue to go out and do things. So I know, after the Lincoln Day dinner, we all went bowling and, got some drinks. And when the Washington, why am I drawing a blank right now?
The Washington.
The state committee meeting that just happened in Spokane recently.
Oh yeah, it's a
we hosted. We hosted a reception and invited all of the state committee members, and as an appreciation and thank you for all their efforts. It's cool. It's cool getting to know your elected officials, right? And Jim Walsh, the head of the Spokane, not the Spokane, but the Washington GOP. He's very supportive of the Young Republicans, which is awesome. And we really appreciate that. We love Jim Walsh. So it's cool building those relationships. At the end of the month, we have our big, Young Republican National Federation meeting in Nashville, Tennessee. So a lot of us are going to go down to Nashville and enjoy the week there. And, there's going to be a big convention and restructuring for the National Federation there. But it's cool. We like to have a lot of fun. We rented out the entire hotel. So the entire hotel is YR. So nice. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. That's cool. And YR is Young Republican, just, for anybody that's not sure. So, yeah, the Young Republican, the chat, so it's a chapter. And what's interesting about it, and I love that you guys, I think they used to have one and then it kind of dwindled. And as far as I can tell, I've talked to a few people, but I love that you guys got it going again. And you are your own entity outside of the Spokane County Republican Party. So you really, which is awesome. I think but it can be mutual. We have a committee under the Spokane County GOP, a Young Republican Committee. So we started that before you guys had your chapter. So we want it because we believe too that we want to get young Republicans involved, like, us old fuddy-duddies that are getting gray hairs and, getting older. We need fresh blood. We need new thinking. We need, that's a whole demographic, a whole generation of people that oftentimes aren't connected, right? Oftentimes don't know the policies that are going on and oftentimes aren't voting, right?
Yeah.
And so we need to change that. Like if we're going to change, like you said earlier, the definition of insanity is keep doing the same thing and expect different results. And so we want to get more people involved. So we had kind of both those things. So you don't have to have a Young Republican chapter to get started. You could have just some few people that start meeting or work with your local county party, your county GOP. But the nice thing about your Young Republican chapters, then you're tied in to the Washington State Young Republicans, which now you're tied into a whole statewide network. And then you're also tied into this national network. So again, it's these numbers that help you, right, advance your agendas, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't do anything without a team.
Yeah.
It's all teamwork, right? And like I feel like the generation of people who have been in politics for decades, right? And they've been committed. I think they're a little tired of all the bickering and fighting internally, but there's like so much information that you guys have that I feel like needs to be passed on to the next generation of people who want to get involved, because you don't want all that knowledge to be lost, right? So I think there's a big push right now to get people in and get people trained up and knowledgeable before people just say, I'm done, I want to retire from this, I've done this for 30 years, which I've heard that quite a few times. People, I've done this for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. They put so much effort and commitment into it. I think a lot of people are just exhausted now. People are tired, but there's the need to be the bigger Republican team and get the younger guys trained up. But yeah, as far as the national federation goes, it's so awesome to have a nationwide group. You have people that you can relate to and a way to network with people from across the country. It's really cool. It opens up a lot of opportunities.
Yes. And Rich, talk about what you're doing right now, because if I understand right, like it's kind of through these opportunities of you connecting, networking within the Republican Party that you got the job that you're doing. Is that right?
Yeah. So I did excavation for the longest time, road construction. I'm now a legal assistant. I work for a law firm, which is cool. I sit behind a desk all day. I'm gaining a little bit of weight. I need to get to the gym a little more. But no, it's cool. I never would have thought that I could get here to this point, and I have some more education to do. But yeah, being in the Republican Party and building these connections with people, it does open up doors for you. It does open up opportunities, and I know I'm not the only one. There's so many other testimonies of people getting connected because of their activism. So yeah, there's anything's possible by the grace of God. Absolutely.
Yeah, you meet some great people for sure. And of course, there's always some characters that are interesting in any kind of organization.
Sure.
But for the most part, I think there's a lot of good people trying to do the right thing and help make things better. And I don't exactly know why there's been a lot of dysfunction within the party, especially in our state, or maybe it's in every state. But I really believe that we have got great people like Enrique that are getting involved and trying to make it good and build the infrastructure, like with the Young Republicans, to help get people involved and make the whole thing way better. And a lot of I'm a former chair of the party here in Spokane, and so many people are like, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you doing this? Because we don't have people.
Right.
We don't
Yeah.
have the people. A lot of people donate to Republican, and it goes to national, or it goes to Trump, or it goes to Win Red, or it goes to the state
Sure.
party, and it
Yeah.
doesn't stay local. Like, only if you donate to the Spokane County GOP does the money go to the Spokane County GOP. Only if you give to the Spokane County Young Republicans does it go to the Spokane County Young Republicans. And usually stuff doesn't flow down from the state. At least I've not had that, where the state is just giving us tons of money at the county. I don't know if do you guys get any support from the state?
We have not been that fortunate. No. We have been fortunate enough to have, build solid connections with people that have sponsored us and donated, money. Because, it's unfortunate. I feel like people are getting squeezed all around for cash. Everyone's struggling now, but I feel like we do a lot with a little. We're fiscally responsible, and we realize that we don't have tons of funds, right? I hear there's a new group in Spokane, the Young Democrats. They look really official. They look really meant. They have money, right? Who's giving these people all this money for them to look so professional, right? It's interesting.
We should probably check those USA dollars, I'm thinking.
Yeah, but no, we don't have a ton of money flowing in from the state, or from anywhere really, besides people like you, MJ, people that just really care and want to help and want to see us succeed. So they donate a little bit of their hard-earned cash, and we always appreciate that. And we do what we can with what we have.
So what is do you guys meet monthly, Enrique?
Yeah, we try to meet monthly. Sometimes like holidays come up or whatnot. Sometimes they be postponed, but we always meet the second Sunday of every month, unless it's postponed or canceled. And I've been trying to do it at the Hive at Spokane. It's a public space, library, cool big rooms with projectors and monitors. So usually we're always at the Hive the second Sunday of the month. And other than that, so that meeting's more of like, how are we going to strategize, what should we be doing, to be better. But if you want to get to know us and to come meet us, just follow us on social media. And we have a lot of social events going on. So just pop into a social event and say hi. Like, even if you're over 40, it doesn't matter. Just come say hi. We'll invite you with open arms.
Yeah, you guys are very welcoming. I've even maybe attended an event or two where, you guys invited me to come, which I greatly appreciated. And they're great group of people. And I just love all the ideas and the fresh energy and, fresh perspective too. Right. So what are the different, where do they find you specifically? What are your social media accounts? Where can people find you?
I believe if you just look up Spokane County YRs, you should be able to find us.
Okay.
Just a second.
I know I had it pulled up earlier too. Let's see if I can find it. There. Okay. So on X, here's the X. Oh, here maybe. Of course, my computer.
I believe it's either Spokane County Young Republicans or Spokane YRs, and you'll see us. It's a little embarrassing. I'm not too.
Yep, at Spokane YRs.
Yes.
Is what your X account is, and so that's it right there. Oh, it's still trying to pull up. So that's your X account. And how about are you on Facebook as well?
Yes, we're on Facebook and Instagram, but I believe that's all right now. So for Instagram, I believe it's it's also Spokane YRs.
Okay. So people can connect with you through those social media accounts is the
Yes.
best way.
Yeah. Or you can always shoot us an email
Okay.
at Spokane County YRs@gmail.com.
Okay. Yeah, awesome. Anything else that you want to leave with people, Enrique? Why should people get involved? And there might be a lot of people watching that aren't under 40. Oh, that was a question before we, have final thoughts. I did have somebody ask me, what about for people? Because I said this is for young Republicans, for anybody under 40. But you have a lot of people that are like your age in the 20s or early 20s or even 18, 19. So talk to us about that, because that's quite a spread from 17, 18 to 40. So what are you just looking for anybody under 40? Do you guys have different age groups that maybe get together on their own? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, that's a great point. I think it really depends on how well people like flow together for one and get along together, but also like, people who are closer to, they're in their 30s and getting closer to 40, you have so much more life experience and knowledge that you can pass on. Like, I'm sure there are skills and, things you've seen in your life that, we can learn from and benefit from. Right. So I think it's more of like, are you willing to join and commit into growing this? Because my goal ultimately for this program is to know one day when I decide to do something else and leave, that'll still be there. And it won't be like, the older groups that, seem to, fizzle out and, go under eventually. I want this to be a program that stays and lasts, for decades. So, if you're a little older, I think that's totally fine. Come in. We still invite you and welcome you. If you're younger, please come in. We want to train you and educate you and get you in. Right. So I think, depending on where you're at, like it'll be, what you're doing will be a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, obviously, people under 21 can't drink, right? So sometimes we have cocktail parties and, cocktail receptions and things like that people under 21 can't go to. But we also always have a lot of inclusive events that, anyone of any age group could go to. So.
Right.
Yeah.
And some of the events, like you guys have like been meeting with legislators. You had an event with Rob Chase, I saw, correct?
Yeah.
And that was just with the Young Republicans?
Yeah, that was us. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really cool. I definitely want to build more strong relationships with the legislators, and let people, our members, get to know them more, right? Because it's important. Yeah. It is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's a really cool opportunity, because all of a sudden you're meeting with people, you're talking about this, you're talking about the upcoming elections. We've got such important elections this year. A lot of people paid big attention last year because it was a governor's and other statewide races and the presidential race, which of course was very important, but so are these local races that are this year, city councils, school board races, other local district races. And so how do you foresee your group getting involved in these elections? I think ballots like dropped or are dropping right now, getting in people's mailboxes for the primary.
Well, I think you can't afford to take your eye off the ball right now. And you're totally right with the elections coming up. They're important. Midterms, next year, those will be huge. We can't afford to take a step back and say, well, Trump's in office, we're good, until the next presidential. We got to stay just as committed. We have to stay just as focused. We have to make sure our friends know how important this is. Make sure our family members know how important these races are. And I think, a lot of these ones, people don't really vote. And it means that, your vote matters more when people vote less.
Yep.
Right. So get your vote in, get your ballots in, please, and tell your friends. So yeah, we're going to continue to help out candidates how we can. We're stretched a little thin now. I wish we did have a lot more members, because we have about 80 members on paper that signed up, which is good. That's a lot of growth. But I'd say maybe about 20 that will show up in rotations, which is good. But I wish we had more. I wish we could help, all the candidates and all the key races, right? But yeah, we'll just continue to do the best we can and continue to try to grow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if know anybody, right? This is my plea. If you know anybody under 40, right, have them connect with Enrique or the Spokane Young Republicans. And even if you don't live in Spokane County, they can help get you connected to maybe a chapter in your local community or with the state too, if you want to start a chapter. And I think that's really awesome. Any final thoughts that you want to share with people, Enrique, before we sign off for tonight?
Sure. I would just like to toss out there again how important I feel that it is that the work that we're doing for this, because I don't know if a lot of people realize, but the old college Republican groups that used to be around at a lot of different universities, they're not there anymore.
Wow.
They're not there anymore. And it's funny, we have a new YR member. His name's Jay. He goes to school in Pullman, and he helped build, a YR chapter for that county. I think it's Whitman County out there. And that's awesome. But he told me, he was asking about the college Republican groups. There are none. You know what I mean? Same here, same in Spokane, at Gonzaga and Eastern and stuff. The college Republicans aren't around anymore. And I think TPUSA and Charlie Kirk have done a good job of getting more social engagement, like social media traction, and, at least having an outlet for, university students to go if they're curious and hear or whatever. But a lot of people don't realize they're nonpartisan. TPUSA is a nonpartisan group. From what I understand, a lot of the conversations I had with TP members, they don't really feel like they're being trained and equipped to be activists. They're more just there for the show. They're along for the ride, right, until they graduate. I think we can do better. And I think that the young Republicans are committed into training and, encouraging people to, hey, you're passionate about, kids, you might have some experience, run for school board maybe, right? We want to support our members to, strive for, excellence.
Absolutely. And we need fresh thinkers, fresh blood, in those different jurisdictions, school boards, city councils, to challenge the thinking, challenge the narrative, challenge the old way of doing things. Like, it's clearly not working. And again, like you said, I mean, these races this year are just as important as the national race, as a presidential race. I mean, the city council elections dictate what happens here in Spokane. Yes, the presidential dictates what happens in our nation, and there's definitely policies affecting us. But the policies affect us here locally are made at these local levels, our school districts, our city councils. And so like we need to make sure that people are engaged in these. And so ballots are dropping, and if you don't know, do you guys do an endorsement thing at all, Enrique, as young Republicans?
Yeah, so endorsements are a little interesting. So we, as like the Spokane County chapter, don't endorse. Endorsements typically happen from the state level, the state YRs, where anyone on the executive committee there can, debate and vote whether it's a good idea to endorse or not. So it does happen sometimes, but not from like Spokane County. It's from the entire state, which opens it up to a lot more debate, right? So I think it's not like a cakewalk to get endorsement from the YRs, right? You really have to be somebody who, the state program feels like could benefit
Gotcha.
that area.
So you're different than the county party, because the county party definitely puts out their recommendations, and that is on the Spokane County GOP website, by the way, SpokaneGOP.com, if you want to look for those recommendations. But you guys are actively involved, obviously, in the campaigns and helping, get Republicans elected, which I think is great. So, Enrique, thanks for being here, and thank you for what you're doing. I mean, thank you for what you've been doing, for stepping up. You had a empty precinct and you stepped up to be a PCO. I implore people to check that out if you, are interested in that. But then you also helped ensure that the Spokane County Young Republicans got established and got set up and restarted. which is awesome. I mean, that's an awesome thing. I mean, how many people did you start with? 5, 10, maybe 20, right?
Yeah, it wasn't a lot. It was just a few of us.
Okay.
But
And now you have 80, that's
yeah,
1 year. Look, and I know you want more, and we always need more people, but you have come a long way. And that's part of your grit and tenacity, yours and others. I know David was very involved with that. A lot of you all were very involved with that. And you guys also just have contributed greatly to the campaigns. I mean, you've made a big, big difference to our local campaigns and our efforts to help get out the vote. So you're making a big difference. And, what I'm excited to see is what that leads to. You may not like be in this for an ego or to prop you up or because you think you're going to run for office someday, but you're the exact type of person that we need to have running. The people that don't usually want to run are the people that make the best candidates, right?
sure.
So it's going to be fun to watch you and your endeavors and what you continue to do. But I really hope you stay involved. I love that you're the chair of the Young Republicans right now here in Spokane County, and I'm always here. So if you guys ever want to promote anything or get on here and talk about, something, or get on the spaces and talk about, some upcoming stuff or needs you guys have, just know I'm a partner. And this is what I'm doing. I'm trying to do what the media won't do. I'm talking about, I want to give you people like you and people like Spokane, this organization, Spokane County Young Republicans, a platform to share about the great things that you guys are doing. So
Yeah, well, thank you for those kind words, MJ, and thank you for all you do and all your hard work and pushing the conversation and getting more voices in the mix. It's so necessary, and it's so awesome. You're such a great person. I feel like you have such a kind heart. The PCOs in Spokane definitely love you. But yeah, anyone anybody who likes what the Young Republicans are doing and support us and thinks that they want to see it continue, please support us. We need all the support we can get. It's all about being a team and a family, right? So please follow us on the social medias, Spokane County Young Republicans or Spokane YRs. And if you can, make a donation, please, or just share our content and help get the word out. Let your nieces and nephews and your sons and daughters and grandchildren know, because this is something that is really special, and I want to cherish it. And I want to make sure that it lasts longer than I do.
Yeah, we can't afford to sit on our duffs and let our nation and our communities kind of degrade in front of our eyes anymore. We know we have got to do better. That's why you got involved, Enrique. That's why I got involved, is because I was floored at what I was seeing, starting with COVID. And it prompted me, moved me to, get involved at a deeper level and really make an impact. And we have to, this is our livelihoods. This is our future. You guys are our future, and we need you involved to ensure that the next generation is going to have a good life and not be enslaved and not be under tyrannical rule, whether it's in your county or your city or your state or your nation, right? And that is the why to getting involved. So again, applaud you for what you're doing, Enrique. Always love talking with you. Come on anytime. And blessings to you and the entire chapter. Tell everybody hi. I miss seeing everybody. But anything I can do, sure, just reach out.
Oh yeah, 100% MJ. Anytime, reach out to us.
Okay. All right. Blessings. Take care. Thanks.
Yeah. God bless.